Catherine Reynolds' hand froze on the laboratory door handle. 2:47 a.m. The security alert had said unauthorized access. She'd expected thieves, corporate spies, maybe vandals. What she found stopped her heart, a black man in a janitor's uniform erasing 3 days of her engineer's work, erasing $100 million. Her finger moved toward the panic button. Then she saw what he was writing. The equations that could save everything, or destroy her completely. The man turned, met her eyes, and said 5 words that would change both their lives. "Ma'am, your algorithm is backwards. Before we begin this journey together, tell me, what city are you watching from? I read every comment and I want to know how far Elena's story travels." Catherine Reynolds hadn't slept in 47 hours. Her reflection in the executive bathroom mirror showed the cost. Silver roots pushing through expensive color foundation, settling into lines. She'd stopped trying to hide eyes that had witnessed 3 marriages fail and 1 company nearly collapse. 56 years old, CEO of Apex Defense Systems. And right now watching everything circle the drain. She pressed her palms against the marble sink. Cold, grounding, real. The Department of Defense contract was dying. 3 days until deadline. 18 engineers burning through the company's reserve capital like kindling. And the autonomous defense system, the technology that was supposed to revolutionize battlefield protection, couldn't track targets through weather conditions. Cloud cover, rain, fog, things that happened in every war zone on Earth. Her phone buzzed. Victor Hartman, VP of Engineering. The man who'd been with her since the beginning, back when Apex operated out of a strip mall office, and she was still Colonel Reynolds' retired Air Force, betting her pension on a dream. "Kate, Lab 3. We need to talk." His voice carried that particular exhaustion that came from failing at something you'd staked your reputation on. She found him staring at a whiteboard covered in equations that looked like wounded soldiers limping toward a solution they'd never reach. "Tell me something good, Victor." "I can't." He rubbed his face. 72 hours of stubble. When had he last gone home? The atmospheric interference modeling is fundamentally flawed. We've been approaching it wrong from the beginning. How wrong? $1 billion wrong. He gestured at the board. We assumed linear signal degradation, built everything on that assumption. Turns out moisture doesn't scatter electromagnetic waves linearly. It's exponential, phase-dependent. Every calculation we've done for the past 8 months is worthless. Catherine felt something cold settle in her stomach. How long to rebuild? 6 months, maybe 8. We have 3 days. I know. We've spent $4.2 million on consultant teams. I know. 400 employees are depending on this contract. Kate. Victor's voice cracked. I know. She wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to go back 15 years and slap her younger self for thinking she could compete with Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, for believing that brilliance and determination mattered more than institutional resources. Instead, she said, I'm staying tonight, going through everything again. Kate, you need sleep. I'll sleep when we're solvent. Victor left. The lab emptied. The building settled into that particular silence of corporate spaces, after hours air conditioning, humming emergency lights casting shadows, security cameras blinking their patient red eyes. Catherine pulled up a chair, stared at the equations, tried to see what 18 qualified engineers had missed. 2 hours passed. Nothing. Her phone buzzed again. Security system. Motion detected Lab 3. She pulled up the camera feed on her tablet. Grainy night vision footage showed a figure entering the lab. Male, average height, pushing a maintenance cart. The night janitor. She watched him park his cart, pull out cleaning supplies, and approach the whiteboard. Standard procedure. Clean the boards. Empty trash vacuum, move on. But he didn't clean the board. He stood there, staring at the equations. One hand holding a spray bottle, the other slowly reaching toward his pocket. He pulled out reading glasses. Catherine sat forward. The janitor stepped closer to the whiteboard. His lips moved reading, his head tilted. And then, he picked up a marker. Her thumb moved toward the security alert button. He started erasing. She stood up, tablet in hand, already moving toward the lab. Her heels echoed in the empty corridor. Badge scanner. Door lock disengaging. He didn't hear her enter. She watched him work. Erasing sections. Rewriting them. His movements precise, confident. Not vandalism. Correction. What exactly do you think you're doing? He spun around. The marker clattered to the floor. For a moment, they just stared at each other. He was older than she'd expected from the camera footage. Mid-40s maybe. Strong build going soft around the middle. Tired eyes that had seen things. Hands that worked for a living. And glasses cheap drugstore readers perched on his nose. "Ma'am?" His voice was steady, respectful, but not afraid. "I apologize. I shouldn't have touched the board. You're erasing classified defense work." "Yes, ma'am. I recognize that was inappropriate." Inappropriate. She heard her own voice sharp cold, the tone that made board members shift in their seats. "That's Department of Defense material. Do you understand the severity? Your atmospheric modeling is wrong." The words hung in the air between them. Catherine felt something shift in her chest. Not anger. Curiosity. "Explain that statement." He hesitated, weighing something. Then, "You're treating moisture as a linear variable. It's not. Water vapor scatters electromagnetic radiation exponentially, not proportionally, and the phase shift varies with droplet size, which changes with altitude and temperature. Your algorithm assumes consistency that doesn't exist in real conditions." She moved closer, studied the corrections he'd made. The equations looked different, not wrong, different. "Where did you learn atmospheric physics?" "Navy, 22 years. Electronics warfare technician." "You worked on radar systems?" "Yes, ma'am. Ship-based early warning systems primarily, sometime attached to carrier air wings." Catherine pulled her tablet out, opened the simulation software. "Show me." "Ma'am, I don't have clearance." "I'm the CEO. I'm giving you clearance. Show me what you changed and why." He picked up the marker again. His hands weren't shaking anymore. "Here." He pointed to a section. "This assumes uniform signal attenuation across the scanning range, but moisture concentrates differently at different altitudes. You need a layered model. Ground fog behaves differently than cloud cover at 15,000 feet. Our engineers accounted for altitude variance. They accounted for pressure and temperature, not for droplet nucleation patterns." "Which means what?" "It means rain forms around dust particles, salt crystals, pollution. The droplet sizes aren't uniform, they're clustered, and different sizes scatter different wavelengths differently. Your broad-spectrum approach is getting noise from that variation." Catherine input his corrections into the simulation. Mathematical models rebuilt themselves in real time. The targeting algorithm processed test data from cloudy conditions. 43 seconds. The system locked on target. Held through weather interference. Maintained tracking accuracy above 90%. She ran it again. Same results. Again. Consistent. Her hands were trembling. She set the tablet down carefully like it might explode. "What's your name?" "Marcus Williams, ma'am." "How long have you been cleaning floors here?" "Marcus Williams. 3 years. And before that?" "Medical retirement from the Navy. Took a while to find work. Most places saw the gap in my resume and—" He stopped. "I needed a job that had steady hours, benefits. This was what was available." Catherine looked at him. Really looked. Saw the pride fighting with resignation. The intelligence hiding behind a service uniform. The man who'd been invisible for 3 years while qualified engineers walked past him every night. "My office, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. "Ma'am, I work night shift." "Not anymore. 8 a.m. Conference room A. Wear whatever you're comfortable in." May I ask what for? You just solved a $100 million problem in, she checked her watch, 4 minutes. The Department of Defense is coming Friday to review our progress. I need you to explain what you did here. Fear flashed across his face. Real fear. Ma'am, I appreciate the recognition, but I can't. Why not? I have a record. The words landed heavy. Catherine kept her expression neutral. What kind of record? Arrested 2 years ago. Charges were dropped, but... He met her eyes. I protested at the VA hospital. My daughter needed surgery. Insurance denied the claim. Said the condition was pre-existing. I lost my temper. Pushed a security guard. They charged me with assault. Convicted? No. Guard declined to press charges once he understood the situation. But it's on record. Any background check will flag it. Catherine processed this. Calculated. A man pushed to desperation by a broken system. A daughter who needed help. A father who fought for her. She'd spent 20 years in military intelligence. She knew what real threats looked like. This wasn't one. 8 a.m., she repeated. I'll handle the background concerns. Why? The question came out raw. Honest. Why are you doing this? Because 3 days ago I watched 18 engineers with advanced degrees fail to solve a problem that you fixed while cleaning toilets. She gestured at the whiteboard. Because competence matters more than credentials. And because if I don't get this contract, 400 people lose their jobs, including you. She turned to leave, stopped at the door. Marcus, one question. Ma'am, why didn't you say something before 3 years you've been here? How many times have you seen mistakes? Long silence, then 17 times, ma'am. 17. Yes, ma'am. I kept a notebook. Logged them. Thought maybe someone would listen eventually. He smiled, sad. But janitors don't talk to engineers. That's not how the world works. It's how my world works now. Catherine held his gaze. 8 a.m. Don't be late. She left him standing in the lab marker still in his hand. Back in her office, she pulled up Marcus Williams's employment file. Bare bones. Social Security number, address, direct deposit information. Emergency contact. Elena Williams' daughter, age 17. She ran a preliminary background check. Navy service record exemplary. 22 years. Multiple commendations. Expert marksman. Advanced electronics training. Honorable discharge, medical injury sustained during training exercise, chronic back condition. Then the gap. 2 years unemployed. The arrest record exactly as he'd described. Charges dropped. Then 3 years at Apex. Perfect attendance. Never late. Never complained. Invisible. She opened a new file. Typed Marcus Williams, Technical Consultant, Atmospheric Systems. Her phone buzzed. Text from Victor. Can't sleep. Coming back in. She replied, Lab 3. Now, bring coffee. When Victor arrived, she was standing at the whiteboard studying Marcus's corrections. What am I looking at? Victor asked. The solution. Kate, I just told you. Run the simulation. Use these parameters. She walked him through Marcus's changes. Watched Victor's expression shift from skepticism to confusion to disbelief. This works, he said finally. How did you? I didn't. Our night janitor did. What? She told him everything. Watched him process it. Watched him struggle with it. The ego blow, the implications, the impossible reality. Kate, we can't what? Can't acknowledge that someone without a degree might understand atmospheric physics better than our credentialed team. Can't admit that we've been walking past expertise for 3 years. That's not what Victor, I'm tired, I'm scared, and I'm done pretending that the way we've always done things is working. She sat down. Friday morning, DOD reviews our progress. We either have a working system or we're done. This, she gestured at the board, is working. I need you to accept that. Victor stared at the equations for a long moment. Then, what do you need from me? Integration support. Marcus understands the theory, but he hasn't worked with our specific hardware. I need you to bridge that gap. You're bringing him onto the engineering team. I'm bringing him into Friday's presentation. Kate, the optics. The optics of what? Of competence, of results. She felt anger rising hot and righteous. We hired him to clean floors, and it turns out he can solve problems our entire engineering department couldn't crack. That's not a PR problem, Victor. That's a failure of our hiring practices, our inability to see value in unconventional places. Victor absorbed this, finally nodded. Okay, but the team is going to have questions. Let them question. I'll have answers. She checked her watch. 4:30 a.m. Go home, shower, be back at 8. We have work to do. After Victor left, Catherine sat alone in her office. Watched dawn break over the city. Thought about Marcus Williams pushing a mop while million-dollar mistakes accumulated around him. Thought about Elena Williams, 17 years old, watching her father disappear into janitorial work after serving his country for 2 decades. Thought about all the people the system had failed, and all the ways she'd been complicit in that failure. Her phone buzzed. Security footage alert. Marcus leaving the building. She watched him on the camera, walking to an old Toyota in the corner of the lot. Sitting in the driver's seat for a moment before starting the engine. She wondered what he was thinking. If he believed her. If he'd show up. 8 a.m. would answer that question. Catherine pulled up her calendar. Canceled morning meetings. Cleared her schedule. Called her assistant voicemail at this hour and left instructions. Conference room A, 8 a.m. Coffee breakfast. Set up for presentation review and pull the personnel file for Marcus Williams. I need everything. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She went down to the janitorial office, a small room near the loading dock. Lockers, time clock, supply closet. A bulletin board covered in OSHA regulations and shift schedules. Marcus Williams, night shift 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. 3 years, never missed a day. She found his locker. Thought about opening it. Didn't. That wasn't the kind of leader she wanted to be. But she did notice something. A photo taped to the locker door. A young woman, cap and gown, holding a diploma. Beautiful smile. Her father's eyes. Elena. Catherine pulled out her phone, took a picture of the photo, sent it to HR with a note. Scholarship fund. Look into it. Then she went back upstairs, showered in the executive bathroom, changed into the spare clothes she kept in her office, made coffee that tasted like desperation and determination, and waited. 7:45 a.m. Elevator chimed. She watched the hallway camera. Marcus Williams stepped out. Not in his janitor's uniform, in khakis and a button-down shirt that had been ironed carefully but not expertly. Shoes polished. Hair cut recently, maybe this morning. He looked terrified. Catherine met him at the conference room door. Thank you for coming. Ma'am? He nodded, professional, guarded. Before we start, I need you to understand something. She gestured for him to sit. He did perched on the edge of the chair like he might need to run. What happens in this room today determines the future of this company. 400 families are counting on us. The Department of Defense is counting on us. And I'm counting on you. Ma'am, I'm not sure I'm the right person. Marcus, look at me. He did. Last night you did in 4 minutes what 18 engineers couldn't do in 3 days. That makes you exactly the right person. She leaned forward. But I need to know, are you ready for this? Because once we start, there's no going back. You're going to face skepticism, hostility. People who think a janitor can't possibly understand what they've spent years studying. I'm used to people underestimating me, ma'am. I know. But this time I need you to prove them wrong, publicly, on record. Can you do that? Long pause. Then, for Elena, I can do anything. Your daughter. Yes, ma'am. She's... His voice caught. She's everything. Smart. Graduating this year. Wants to study engineering. And I need her to see that intelligence matters. That knowledge matters. Even when the world tries to tell you it doesn't. Catherine felt something crack in her chest. A wall she'd built brick by careful brick over decades in male-dominated fields. All the time she'd swallowed anger, proven herself, fought for recognition. Then let's show her, she said quietly. Let's show everyone. The conference room door opened. Victor entered, followed by 3 senior engineers. Then Patricia Chen, the chief operating officer. Then board members, starting to arrive for what they thought was a routine crisis meeting. Marcus stood up. She saw him lock his knees. Saw him breathe. Saw him become something other than a janitor. He became an expert. Ladies and gentlemen, Catherine began. 3 days ago, our autonomous defense system failed atmospheric interference testing. Yesterday at 2:47 a.m. we found the solution. I'd like you to meet Marcus Williams, former Navy electronics warfare technician, 22 years of experience in radar and tracking systems, and as of this morning, our senior technical consultant on atmospheric modeling. The room went silent. Marcus stepped forward, picked up the marker, and started writing. Marcus's hand moved across the whiteboard with the kind of precision that came from muscle memory, years of plotting coordinates in cramped ship spaces while the ocean pitched beneath his feet. The marker squeaked softly. Numbers appeared. Equations built themselves into something that looked less like mathematics and more like poetry. No one spoke. He drew a simple diagram, 3 horizontal lines representing atmospheric layers. Then he added dots, clusters of them varying sizes. Water droplets don't form uniformly, he said. His voice was steady, now falling into the rhythm of briefing officers during deployment. They nucleate around particles, dust-salt pollution. In the Persian Gulf, we tracked incoming missiles through sandstorms because we understood that sand particles create specific scattering patterns. The moisture that forms around them amplifies those patterns. Victor Hartman leaned forward. You're saying we need to account for particulate density? Yes, sir. But more than that, you need to account for how those particles behave at different altitudes, different temperatures, different humidity levels. A raindrop at ground level in Virginia doesn't scatter the same as a raindrop at 15,000 feet over the Hindu Kush. One of the senior engineers, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, stood up. That would require real-time atmospheric sampling across multiple altitudes simultaneously. Yes, ma'am. Which is impossible with current sensor technology. Not impossible, just expensive. Marcus turned back to the board. But you don't need perfect data. You need predictive modeling based on standard atmospheric conditions for target regions. The DoD already has that data weather patterns for every conflict zone on Earth. You're just not leveraging it. Patricia Chen, the COO, spoke for the first time. How did you know we weren't leveraging it? Marcus hesitated. Catherine saw the moment of calculation, how much to reveal, how much to hold back. I read the system documentation, he said finally. You have access to system documentation. Patricia's voice had an edge. No, ma'am. I found it in the recycling. Lab 2 about 6 months ago. Someone had printed out the atmospheric modeling specifications. I thought... He stopped. Started again. I thought someone might want it back, so I read it. To understand what it was. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. You took classified documents from recycling, Patricia said. I secured classified documents from an unsecured location, Marcus replied. Then I reported it to security. They told me to dispose of it properly, which I did. After reading it. Yes, ma'am, after reading it. Catherine watched the board members exchange glances, watched Victor's jaw tighten, watched the whole thing threatening to derail before it started. She stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting distracted. Her voice cut through the tension like a blade. Marcus found a security vulnerability and reported it. He also happened to absorb the contents which, given what we now know about his background, isn't surprising. The question isn't how he gained knowledge. The question is whether that knowledge solves our problem. Kate, Patricia started. Does it solve our problem? Catherine repeated harder this time. Silence. Victor cleared his throat. Yes, it does. I ran the simulations at 4 a.m. The modifications work. Then that's what matters. Catherine turned to Marcus. Continue. He did. For the next 40 minutes, he walked them through the corrections, the reasoning, the real-world applications he'd seen in the field. He talked about tracking low-altitude cruise missiles through monsoons off the coast of Pakistan, about distinguishing between weather interference and electronic countermeasures, about the difference between theoretical modeling and systems that had to work when lives depended on them. And slowly, Catherine watched the room shift. Sarah Chen started taking notes. Victor began asking technical questions that Marcus answered without hesitation. Even Patricia's expression softened from hostile to grudgingly impressed. When Marcus finally set down the marker, his shirt was damp with sweat, but his hands were steady. Questions? Catherine asked. A board member, Gregory Walsh, former Raytheon executive, raised his hand. Mr. Williams, you said you served 22 years in the Navy. Why aren't you working as an engineer? The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus met Gregory's eyes. I applied, sir. 47 times over 2 years. Most companies told me I lacked current experience. Some said I was overqualified for entry positions, underqualified for senior roles. A few were honest. They said I didn't have a degree, and their HR systems automatically filtered out applications without one. So you became a janitor. I became employed, sir. I had a daughter to feed, rent to pay, medical bills. He paused. I chose steady work over pride. I'd make that choice again. Gregory nodded slowly. Fair enough. Another question, this time from a younger engineer Catherine didn't recognize. How do we know this isn't just luck? One good insight doesn't make you qualified to what? Marcus's voice didn't rise, but something in it changed, became colder, harder. To understand the systems I worked with for 2 decades, to apply field experience to theoretical problems, or to be treated like I might actually know something worth listening to. The engineer flushed. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. Marcus set down the marker carefully. And that's fine, I'm used to it. But here's what I know: I've seen these systems fail in combat. I've watched good people die because the technology didn't work the way the contractors promised it would. And I've spent 3 years in this building watching smart people make the same mistakes I saw cost lives downrange. He turned to Catherine. Ma'am, I appreciate the opportunity. But if the question is whether I'm qualified, maybe the better question is whether your qualified engineers have ever had to explain to a 19-year-old sailor's mother why the radar system didn't see the missile that killed her son. The room went dead silent. Catherine felt something fierce and painful lodge in her throat. Marcus picked up his jacket from the back of the chair. Thank you for your time. Sit down. Catherine's voice was quiet but absolute. He stopped. Sit. Down. Marcus hesitated, then sat. Catherine turned to face the room. Let me be very clear. Marcus Williams is not here to be interrogated about his qualifications. He's here because he solved a problem that was about to bankrupt this company. We can either accept that reality and move forward, or we can cling to credential requirements while 400 people lose their jobs. She paused. I know which option I'm choosing. Patricia spoke up. Kate, no one is questioning his insight, but we can't just bring someone onto the team without proper vetting. I've vetted him. 22 years of Navy service, exemplary record, expert-level knowledge in exactly the systems we're building. Catherine pulled out her tablet. I've also pulled his security clearance history. He held secret clearance throughout his service. Never had a violation. The clearance lapsed when he was discharged, but reinstatement should be straightforward. Should be, Patricia emphasized. Will be, Catherine countered. Because I'm making it a priority. Because we need him. Victor stood up. Everyone looked at him. The VP of Engineering. The man who'd been with Catherine since the beginning. The one whose ego should have been most bruised by all this. Marcus, Victor said. Can you be here Monday morning 7 a.m.? Sir. I need you to walk my team through these corrections in detail. Show us how to implement them across the full system architecture, not just the atmospheric modeling everything downstream that depends on it. Victor's voice was rough but sincere. I've spent 3 days failing. I don't want to spend 3 more failing because I was too proud to learn from someone who knows better. Marcus stared at him. Yes, sir. I can be here. Good. Victor looked at Catherine. I'll handle the technical integration. You handle the politics. Deal. The meeting dissolved. People filed out, some still whispering, some silent. Sarah Chen stopped by Marcus's chair. My father was Navy, she said quietly. Electronics technician, served in Vietnam. Came home and worked as a television repairman for 30 years because nobody would hire him for anything else. She held out her hand. I look forward to working with you. Marcus shook it. Thank you, ma'am. When the room emptied, only Catherine and Marcus remained. You almost walked out, she said. I almost did. Why didn't you? Because Elena is watching. He rubbed his face. I told her this morning. Told her I had a chance to use my brain again instead of just my hands. She said, his voice cracked. She said she was proud of me, and I couldn't walk away from that. Catherine sat down across from him. Tell me about her. Ma'am. Your daughter. Elena. Tell me about her. Marcus smiled, and it transformed his face. She's 17, senior year. Straight A's somehow despite everything. Wants to study mechanical engineering. Builds things robots mostly from spare parts and YouTube tutorials. She's smarter than I ever was. She gets it from you. She gets it from her mother. The smile faded. Anna was the engineer, MIT grad. We met when I was stationed in Boston. She was doing contract work for the Navy. I was doing maintenance on the same systems. She saw past the uniform. He stopped. Cancer. 4 years ago. We had insurance, but it didn't cover everything. The bills, the VA hospital, Catherine said softly. Yeah. They denied Elena's follow-up screenings. Said she didn't qualify because Anna's condition wasn't service-connected, even though we'd met through service lived on base dealt with all the stress that comes with deployment cycles. He laughed bitter. I pushed a security guard. Didn't hurt him. Just pushed him when he tried to remove me from the administrator's office. They arrested me, made the news, made it impossible to get hired anywhere that ran background checks. But the charges were dropped. The charges were dropped. The damage wasn't. He met her eyes. I'm telling you this because if we move forward, it'll come out. Someone will find it. Someone will use it against you. Let them. Catherine leaned back. Marcus, I spent 20 years in Air Force intelligence. I've seen real threats. Men who would sell secrets, compromise operations, put lives at risk for money or ideology or ego. She gestured at him. You're not that. You're a father who fought for his daughter's health care. If someone wants to weaponize that against you, I'll burn their credibility to the ground. Why? The word came out raw. Why are you doing this? Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Then, my 3rd marriage ended 6 years ago. He said I loved the company more than him. He was right. She smiled sadly. I built Apex because I believed in something that the technology we create should protect people, not just profit shareholders. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that the people I was supposed to be protecting included the people working for me. Ma'am? I watched you clean floors for 3 years, Marcus. Walked past you hundreds of times. Never asked your name. Never wondered if you had a story worth hearing. She looked at him steadily. That's on me. And I don't get to undo it. But I can make sure it doesn't happen moving forward. They sat in silence. Finally, Marcus spoke. What happens now? Now, now we prepare for Friday, the DoD review. You'll present the solution. Victor's team will demonstrate implementation, and we'll either save this company or we won't. And if we don't, then at least we tried, and at least Elena will know her father fought for something that mattered. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, yes, I'm in. Good. Catherine stood, held out her hand. Welcome to Apex Defense Systems, Mr. Williams, Senior Technical Consultant. He shook it. His grip was strong, certain. After Marcus left, Catherine returned to her office, found Victor waiting. That was risky, he said. Everything worth doing is risky. The board is going to push back. Patricia already called me. She's worried about liability, about precedent, about what it means if we start promoting people from janitorial services. It means we start recognizing talent wherever it exists. Catherine pulled up her computer. I need you to do something for me. What? Review our hiring practices. Every position, every requirement, every filter we use to screen candidates. I want to know how many Marcus Williams we've turned away because they didn't check the right boxes. Victor absorbed this. That's going to reveal some uncomfortable truths. Good. I'm tired of comfortable lies. He left. Catherine spent the next hour on the phone with HR, with security, with the team handling Marcus's clearance reinstatement. Made it clear that this was priority one. Made it clear that bureaucratic delays would be career-limiting. Then she did something impulsive. She pulled up Marcus's personnel file again. Found his emergency contact information. His home address. She shouldn't visit. It was inappropriate. Crossing boundaries. She went anyway. The apartment complex was on the south side, the kind of place where paint peeled and air conditioners dripped rust. Marcus's unit was on the third floor. She climbed stairs that smelled like cooking oil and cigarette smoke. Knocked on 3B. A young woman answered. Dark hair, bright eyes, her father's cheekbones. She wore a t-shirt that said Robotics Team and held a soldering iron. Can I help you? Elena asked. I'm Catherine Reynolds. I work with your father. Elena's expression shifted, guarded, protective. Dad's not here. I know. He's still at the office. I came to talk to you. About what? About your father. And about your future. Catherine smiled. May I come in? Elena hesitated, then stepped aside. The apartment was small, clean, organized with the kind of care that came from having limited resources and making them count. A kitchen table covered in circuit boards and wire, textbooks stacked neatly, a photo on the wall. Marcus, Elena, and a woman with kind eyes. Anna. You're the CEO, Elena said. It wasn't a question. I am. Dad called me, told me what happened, told me you gave him a chance. Elena's voice was careful, controlled. He also told me it might not last, that people like us don't usually get chances that stick. Catherine felt those words land like punches. People like you, she repeated. People without degrees, people with records, people who get looked past. Elena set down the soldering iron. My dad is the smartest person I know. He taught himself calculus from library books so he could help me with homework. He rebuilt our car engine using YouTube videos. He can fix anything. Her voice hardened. But for 3 years he's cleaned toilets because that's all anyone would let him do. That changes now. Does it? Elena crossed her arms. Or does he get used to demonstrate how progressive your company is, then quietly let go when the publicity fades? Catherine stared at this 17-year-old girl who'd learned cynicism the hard way. I can't promise you it'll be easy, Catherine said quietly. Your father is going to face resistance, people who resent him, people who think he doesn't belong. But I can promise you this, I will fight for him, every day, because he earned it. And because I'm tired of a system that wastes brilliance because it comes in unexpected packages. Elena studied her. Why are you really here? Because your father mentioned you want to study engineering. I do. What's stopping you? Money. I have grades, I have test scores, but we don't have $50,000 a year for tuition. Dad's been saving, but it's not enough. I've applied for scholarships, but competition is... She stopped. Why are you asking? Catherine pulled an envelope from her bag, set it on the table. What's this? Elena asked. An application for the Apex Defense Systems Education Fund. Full scholarship for dependents of employees pursuing STEM degrees. Covers tuition, housing, books, and a stipend for expenses. Elena stared at the envelope like it might bite. This doesn't exist, she said finally. It does now. I created it this afternoon. You'll be the first recipient. Why? Because your father solved a $100 million problem. Because you built robots from spare parts. And because the world needs more engineers like you. Catherine stood. Because someone should have done this for my parents, and no one did. I put myself through college working 3 jobs. It almost broke me. You shouldn't have to break to succeed. Elena's eyes filled with tears. She wiped them away angrily. I don't know what to say. Say you'll apply. Say you'll study hard. Say you'll become the kind of engineer who changes things. Catherine moved toward the door. And say you'll forgive me for taking 3 years to see your father. Ms. Reynolds. Catherine turned. Thank you. Elena's voice cracked. Thank you for seeing him. For seeing us. Catherine left before she started crying too. She drove back to the office as the sun set. Found Marcus in Lab 3 working with Victor's team. They'd started implementation. The whiteboard was covered in new equations, refined calculations, system integrations. Marcus saw her through the glass. Excused himself. Met her in the hallway. You went to see Elena, he said. How did you know? She called me, crying, told me about the scholarship. His voice was thick. Ma'am, I don't know how to... You don't have to say anything. She's going to MIT, her mother's school. She's going to... He broke, just stood there in the hallway and cried. Catherine did something she'd never done with an employee before. She hugged him, felt him shake, felt 30 years of carrying impossible weight finally crack open. She deserves it, Catherine said quietly. You both do. When he pulled back, his eyes were red but clear. I won't let you down, he said. I know. Now get back in there. Friday's coming, and we have work to do. He returned to the lab. Catherine watched through the glass. Watched him work alongside engineers who 6 hours ago had questioned his right to be there. Watched them listen, learn, collaborate. Watched something impossible become real. Her phone buzzed. Patricia Chen. We need to talk. About the precedent you're setting. About the liability. About what happens when the board finds out you created a scholarship fund without their approval. Catherine smiled. Let them find out. Let them object. And then let them explain why they're against educating brilliant young people. Kate. Patricia. I'm done playing it safe. Done optimizing for comfort instead of justice. Done pretending that the way things have always been is the way things should stay. She watched Marcus laugh at something Victor said. We almost lost everything this week, and we were saved by someone we'd made invisible. That's not a fluke. That's a failure. Our failure. And I'm fixing it. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm with you. But prepare for a fight. Always am. Catherine hung up, returned to her office, pulled up the presentation for Friday's DoD review, started rebuilding it around Marcus's corrections, around a janitor who'd changed everything, around a man who'd been invisible until someone finally chose to see. The next 72 hours blurred into a rhythm Catherine hadn't felt in years, the kind of focused intensity that came from believing in something beyond quarterly reports and shareholder value. She arrived at the office before dawn each morning and found Marcus already there, coffee cooling beside his laptop whiteboard, covered in calculations that evolved overnight like living organisms. Victor's team had divided into two camps. Half embraced Marcus, immediately hungry for his field experience and practical knowledge. The other half circled like sharks, waiting for him to prove he didn't belong. Wednesday morning, Sarah Chen knocked on Catherine's office door. "We have a problem." Catherine looked up from the implementation timeline. "Which one?" "Derek Moskowitz is refusing to work with Marcus." Derek, senior algorithm architect, PhD from Carnegie Mellon, 20 years at Lockheed before Catherine recruited him. Brilliant and brittle in equal measure. What's his objection? He won't say directly, but he's been telling the junior engineers that we're dumbing down the project to accommodate someone without formal training, that we're prioritizing optics over rigor. Catherine set down her pen very carefully. Where is he now? Lab 2. She found Derek exactly where Sarah said, surrounded by 3 younger engineers holding court like a tenured professor. "Derek, my office. Now." He looked up startled. "Catherine, I'm in the middle of..." "Now." The walk back was silent. Catherine's heels clicked like a countdown. When they reached her office, she closed the door and turned to face him. "Speak." "I don't know what you..." "You're telling people we're compromising the project's integrity. Speak. Explain that statement." Derek's jaw tightened. "We built this company on scientific rigor, peer-reviewed research, validated methodologies. Now we're letting a janitor rewrite our algorithms because he had a lucky insight. It sets a dangerous precedent." "A lucky insight that works. This time. But what happens when we hit the next problem and he can't solve it? When we've elevated him beyond his competence and the whole project collapses?" Catherine moved to the window, looked out at the parking lot where Marcus's old Toyota sat next to Derek's Tesla. "You're scared," she said quietly. "I'm concerned about..." "You're terrified. Because if a man without a degree can do what you do, it means your credentials aren't as valuable as you thought. It means you're not as irreplaceable as you believed." "That's not..." "It is exactly that." She turned to face him. "Derek, I respect your work. I recruited you because you're exceptional. But Marcus isn't here to replace you. He's here to complement you. His field experience makes your theoretical knowledge more applicable. Your technical depth makes his practical insights more implementable. You need each other. Or maybe we need to maintain standards." "Standards?" Catherine laughed sharp and cold. "Is it standard to spend $4 million on consultants who couldn't solve the problem? Is it standard to march toward bankruptcy rather than admit we missed something? Is it standard to ignore expertise because it doesn't come with the right paperwork?" Derek said nothing. "I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone at this company," Catherine continued. "My father was a mechanic, high school dropout, worked at the same garage for 40 years. When I applied to the Air Force Academy, my guidance counselor told me I didn't come from an academy family, that people like me didn't succeed in elite institutions." She paused. "I succeeded anyway, but I spent 20 years proving I belonged, 20 years being twice as good to be considered half as competent. So when I see someone like Marcus, someone with real knowledge being dismissed because he doesn't have the right credentials, I see my father. I see myself, and I refuse to perpetuate that system." Derek shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't realize. You weren't supposed to. I learned to hide it. Learned to speak the language of the educated elite. Learned to erase where I came from." She met his eyes. "But I'm done hiding. And I'm done making other people hide. So you have a choice, Derek. Work with Marcus and make this project succeed, or find somewhere else that values credibility over credentials. You're threatening to fire me. I'm offering you an opportunity to grow. But if you can't take it, then yes, you should leave." Long silence. Derek stared at her like he'd never seen her before. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "You have until tomorrow morning." After he left, Catherine discovered her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her desk. Breathed. Her phone rang. An unknown number. Catherine Reynolds. Ms. Reynolds, this is Colonel James Patterson, Department of Defense. Her stomach dropped. Colonel, how can I help you? I'm calling about Friday's review. I need to move it up. Move it how far up? Tomorrow. 1000 hours. Something's come up with the procurement timeline. The secretary wants a decision by end of week. Colonel, we're not ready. Then get ready. 1000 hours tomorrow. And Ms. Reynolds, I've heard some interesting rumors about your team composition. I'm looking forward to seeing what you've built. He hung up. Catherine sat very still. Then she picked up her phone and texted Victor and Marcus simultaneously. DOD moved review to tomorrow 10 a.m. Lab 3. Now. They appeared within minutes. Marcus looked exhausted, coffee stains on his shirt. Victor looked worse. Tomorrow, Victor said flatly. They want the presentation tomorrow. Yes. We're not ready. The integration testing isn't complete. We haven't validated the atmospheric model across all the target regions. We haven't. Victor. Catherine's voice cut through his spiral. Are we more ready than we were 3 days ago? Pause. Yes. Is the core solution sound? Yes. Can we demonstrate functional improvement over the baseline? Yes, but... Then we're ready enough. She turned to Marcus. Can you present the technical solution clearly to a DOD audience? I've briefed admirals on radar systems while the ship was under fire. I can handle a conference room. Good, because you're lead presenter. Victor's head snapped up. Kate. He's lead. You provide technical support and demonstrate integration. Sarah handles the data validation. But Marcus presents the core solution. He found it. He owns it. The optics. The optics are that we solved the problem. Period. Catherine pulled up her calendar. We have 22 hours. Victor, I need you to finish integration testing. Sarah, validate the atmospheric model against DOD regional data. They'll have it in their systems, cross-reference ours. Marcus, you're with me. We're building your presentation. Ma'am, I've never... You briefed admirals under fire. This is just briefing colonels in a comfortable room. You'll be fine. They scattered. Catherine pulled Marcus into the conference room. Closed the door. Tell me the truth, she said. Are you ready for this? No. The honesty startled her. No? I'm terrified. I'm an imposter. I got lucky once, and now I'm supposed to stand in front of Department of Defense officials and pretend I know what I'm doing. They're going to see right through me. Catherine sat down across from him. Marcus, look at me. He did. You're not an imposter. You're an expert who was forced to hide his expertise for 3 years. There's a difference. Is there? Because right now it feels the same. It feels the same because you've been conditioned to doubt yourself. Because society told you that without certain credentials your knowledge doesn't count. But that's a lie. She leaned forward. When you were on that ship tracking missiles, did you doubt yourself? No. Why not? Because lives depended on me being right. Lives depend on you being right tomorrow. 400 employees, their families, the sailors and Marines who'll use the system we're building. This isn't different. It's just a different uniform. Marcus absorbed this. What if I fail? Then we fail together. But we won't fail. Because you know this system better than anyone in that room will. You've seen it work and fail in real conditions. You've got 22 years of experience they can't match. So tomorrow, you're going to walk in there and share that experience. Not apologize for it. Share it. He nodded slowly. Okay. Yes. Let's build this presentation. They worked through the night. Catherine watched Marcus transform, the hesitation falling away as he moved into technical explanations, the confidence building as he outlined real-world applications. He didn't speak like an academic. He spoke like someone who'd lived the problems he was solving. At 3 a.m, Sarah knocked on the conference room door. I've got the regional validation data. Marcus's model holds across all target environments. Persian Gulf, Korean Peninsula, South China Sea, everywhere. The accuracy improvement is consistent. Error margins, Catherine asked. 4%, down from 34. Marcus looked up from his notes. 4% is still 8 times worse than clear conditions. 4% is good enough to save lives, Sarah said quietly. My father would have killed for 4% accuracy in Vietnam. The weight of that statement settled over them. At 6 in the morning, Victor appeared with breakfast sandwiches and the integration test results. It works, he said simply. Not perfectly, but it works. We can demonstrate functional improvement across all subsystems. Good enough. Victor looked at Marcus. More than good enough. What he found, it's not just a fix. It's a fundamental insight into how these systems should be designed. We've been approaching atmospheric interference as a problem to overcome. Marcus showed us how to work with it. That's the difference between engineering and innovation. Marcus stared at him. Sir, I thank you. Don't thank me, just don't screw up the presentation. Victor smiled tired. Because if you do, we're all out of a job. At 9:45 they assembled in the main conference room. Catherine had made sure it was perfect presentation, loaded demonstration system, ready coffee, and water available. The room smelled like anxiety and industrial carpet cleaner. Colonel Patterson arrived at 9:58 with 2 DoD acquisition specialists and a woman Catherine didn't recognize. Severe suit, calculating eyes government contractor, written all over her. Ms. Reynolds. Patterson shook her hand. This is Dr. Ellen Morehouse from Defense Advanced Research Projects. She's observing for DARPA. Catherine's heart rate spiked. DARPA didn't observe routine contract reviews. DARPA observed breakthrough technology. Colonel, Dr. Morehouse, welcome. She gestured to the table. Please sit. Can I get you anything? Just the presentation, Patterson said. We're on a tight schedule. Everyone sat. Catherine felt the weight of 400 jobs pressing down on her shoulders. Felt Marcus's fear radiating from 3 seats away. Felt Victor's barely controlled stress. Before we begin, Patterson said, I understand you've made some changes to your team composition. Here it was. The moment that could derail everything. We have, Catherine said steadily. 3 days ago, we identified a critical flaw in our atmospheric modeling. We brought in additional expertise to address it. That expert is presenting today. Additional expertise from where? From 22 years of naval service. Electronics warfare technician. Field experience with radar systems in combat conditions. Patterson's eyebrows rose. You brought in a veteran contractor. We promoted an employee who had relevant expertise we'd failed to recognize. Promoted from what position? Catherine met his eyes. Night janitorial services. The room went dead silent. Dr. Morehouse leaned forward. You're telling me a janitor solved your atmospheric interference problem? I'm telling you a former Navy electronics warfare technician who we'd employed in janitorial services solved it. We failed to recognize his qualifications. We've corrected that failure. Patterson studied her. Then he smiled. I'm going to love this. Show me. Catherine nodded to Marcus. He stood. Walked to the front of the room. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the remote. Then he clicked to the first slide and his voice steadied. Colonel Patterson, Dr. Morehouse, members of the review team. My name is Marcus Williams. 3 days ago, I was cleaning this building's laboratories. Today I'm here to explain how we solved the atmospheric interference problem that's plagued autonomous defense systems for the past decade. He advanced to the next slide, a simple diagram of atmospheric layers. The fundamental flaw in current approaches is the assumption that water droplets scatter electromagnetic radiation uniformly. They don't. They scatter based on droplet size, which varies based on nucleation patterns, which vary based on particulate composition, which varies based on geographic and atmospheric conditions. Patterson leaned back, listening. In 2011, I was stationed aboard USS Princeton in the Persian Gulf. We were testing early warning systems for incoming anti-ship missiles. The system worked perfectly in clear conditions, failed catastrophically in sandstorms. Not because the technology was flawed, but because we were modeling atmospheric interference incorrectly. Marcus advanced through slides showing real tracking data from his deployment. Failures, successes, patterns. We learned that sand particles create predictable nucleation patterns. When moisture forms around those particles, it amplifies specific frequency ranges while dampening others. Once we understood that we could compensate for it. Filter the noise. Enhance the signal. He pulled up the current Apex system architecture. Your current atmospheric model treats all moisture as equivalent interference. It's not. Moisture over the Persian Gulf behaves differently than moisture over the Korean Peninsula. Different particulate compositions, different droplet formation patterns, different scattering characteristics. You need regional modeling, not universal assumptions. Dr. Morehouse interrupted. How many regional models would we need? 12 core models covering major conflict zones, each with seasonal variations. Total of 48 distinct atmospheric profiles. The DoD already has the base meteorological data. We're just applying it differently. Processing requirements. Minimal. The heavy lifting is in the model development, not real-time computation. Once the models are validated, implementation adds less than 2% computational overhead. She made a note. Continue. Marcus spent the next 20 minutes walking through the technical implementation. Victor jumped in with integration details. Sarah presented validation data. It was seamless professional, exactly what Catherine had hoped for. When Marcus finished, Patterson was nodding slowly. Demonstrate it, he said. Victor pulled up the live system. They ran test scenarios, cloudy conditions, rain fog, sandstorms. The tracking held. Accuracy remained above 90% across all conditions. Patterson turned to Dr. Morehouse. Thoughts? I want to know why no one else thought of this. Marcus answered. Because most people designing these systems learned from textbooks and simulations. They've never had to make them work when Marines are depending on them. Theory is clean. Reality is messy. You need both. Dr. Morehouse smiled for the first time. Mr. Williams, what's your educational background? High school diploma. 22 years of Navy technical training. Field experience across 3 combat deployments. No engineering degree? No, ma'am. Interesting. She looked at Catherine. Ms. Reynolds, I'm curious about your hiring practices. How did someone with Mr. Williams' background end up in janitorial services? Catherine felt the trap. Felt everyone in the room tense. She could deflect, could make excuses, could try to protect the company's reputation. Instead, she told the truth. Because our hiring systems filter for credentials, not competence. Because Mr. Williams has an arrest record from 2 years ago, charges dropped that flagged him in background checks. Because we built a system that optimizes for pedigree over performance. And because I personally walked past him for 3 years without bothering to learn who he was. She paused. We failed. I failed. We're fixing that now. The room was silent. Then Patterson laughed. Actually laughed deep and genuine. I spent 30 years in the military watching qualified people get passed over because they didn't check the right boxes. Watching politicians' kids and academy graduates get fast-tracked while enlisted specialists who actually knew their jobs got ignored. He stood up. This is the first time I've seen a defense contractor admit they screwed up and actually fix it. Ms. Reynolds, the contract is yours. Mr. Williams, if you ever get tired of the private sector, give me a call. We need people like you. Dr. Morehouse added, DARPA is interested in expanding this research. We'd like to discuss a follow-on contract focused on atmospheric modeling for directed energy weapons. Mr. Williams, would you be willing to consult? Marcus looked at Catherine. She nodded. Yes, ma'am. I'd be honored. The meeting concluded with handshakes and promises to send paperwork. When the DoD team left, the conference room erupted. Victor hugged Marcus. Sarah was crying. Someone opened champagne that had been hidden in the cabinet for emergencies. Catherine stepped out into the hallway. Needed air. Needed a moment to process that they'd actually done it. Patricia found her there. I heard. Congratulations. Thank you. I also heard what you told them. About our hiring failures. About walking past Marcus for 3 years. I told the truth. Patricia studied her. It was brave. Stupid, but brave. You could have protected the company's reputation. The company's reputation was built on a lie. Better to acknowledge it and fix it than pretend we're something we're not. The board isn't going to like it. The board is going to like the $100 million contract. And if they don't like how we got it, they can find a new CEO. Patricia laughed. You've changed. No, I just remembered who I was before I learned to fit in. She returned to the conference room. Found Marcus surrounded by engineers asking technical questions, seeking his input, treating him like the expert he'd always been. Their eyes met across the room. He mouthed, "Thank you." She shook her head. Mouthed back, "Thank Elena." Because none of this happened without her. Without a 17-year-old girl who needed her father to believe he still mattered. Who needed him to prove that intelligence counted, that knowledge had value, that being overlooked didn't mean being worthless. Catherine's phone buzzed. Elena. Ms. Reynolds, my dad just called. He's crying. He says you did it. He says he gets to be an engineer again. He was always an engineer, Elena. We just finally noticed. Thank you. Thank you for seeing him. For seeing us. Thank you for teaching me how to look. That evening, after everyone left, Catherine stood alone in Lab 3. The whiteboard still held Marcus's original corrections from 3 nights ago, the equations that had saved them all. She took a photo, sent it to the company communications team with instructions, frame this, hang it in the lobby, caption, excellence can come from anywhere. Our job is to recognize it. Then she went home for the first time in 4 days. Slept for 12 hours straight. Dreamed of nothing. When she woke up, she had 17 missed calls. The board wanted an emergency meeting. The press had gotten wind of the story. Defense contractor promotes janitor who solved critical problem. They wanted interviews, statements, damage control. Catherine ignored all of it. Instead, she texted Marcus. How's Elena? She's already looking at MIT courses, planning her schedule. She can't stop smiling. Good. Tell her I'm proud of her. I will. Kate. It was the first time he'd used her first name. Yes. I don't know how to thank you for this, for all of it. Then don't. Just show up Monday and keep being brilliant. That's all the thanks I need. Monday morning would bring new challenges. The board meeting, the press, Derek's decision about whether to stay or go, the hard work of actually implementing everything they'd promised. But right now, in this moment, Catherine let herself feel something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate hope of survival, but the fierce hope of transformation. Of becoming something better than they'd been. Of building a company where people like Marcus didn't have to hide their brilliance behind a mop. Where Elena wouldn't have to fight as hard as her father had. Where credentials opened doors, but competence determined who walked through them. It wouldn't be easy. Change never was. But for the first time in her career, Catherine Reynolds believed it was possible, and that belief made all the difference. Monday arrived like a reckoning. Catherine walked into the building at 6:30 and found protesters already gathering outside. Not many, maybe 20 people, but enough to make her security team nervous. They carried signs that read, "Qualified workers matter," and "Degrees aren't optional," and one that just said, "Diversity hire." She stopped at the glass doors, read each sign, let the anger settle into something colder and more useful. Her head of security approached. "Ma'am, I can have them removed. They're on private property." "Let them stay. They have a right to their opinion." "But the optics..." The optics are that we're a company willing to hear criticism, even when it's wrong. She pulled open the door. Just make sure they stay peaceful. Inside the lobby was chaos. Press had somehow gotten through security, 3 camera crews, and a dozen reporters with microphones. They swarmed her immediately. Ms. Reynolds, is it true you promoted a janitor to senior engineer? Ms. Reynolds, critics say you're undermining professional standards. Ms. Reynolds, what message does this send about the value of education? She raised her hand. They quieted, hungry for sound bites. I'll make one statement. We promoted Marcus Williams because he possessed expertise critical to our mission. His 22 years of naval service and field experience with radar systems made him uniquely qualified to solve a problem our credentialed engineers couldn't crack. We're not undermining education. We're recognizing that expertise comes from multiple sources, and our job is to identify and leverage it wherever it exists. That's all I have to say. But don't you think that's all I have to say? She walked to the elevator, let the doors close on their shouted questions, rode up alone watching the floor numbers climb. Patricia was waiting outside the executive suite. The board convenes in an hour. They're not happy. I didn't expect them to be. Gregory Walsh is calling for your resignation. Catherine stopped walking. Gregory is... He says you've made the company a laughingstock, that we'll lose credibility with clients who expect certain standards, that you acted unilaterally without board approval on major personnel and policy decisions. I acted to save the company, which is my job. He's going to argue you could have done it differently, could have brought Marcus in as a consultant, could have avoided the publicity. I could have hidden him, made him invisible again. That's what Gregory really wants. Patricia didn't argue. Catherine found Victor in his office staring at his computer with the expression of a man reading his own obituary. What now? Engineering forums are blowing up. Half the people are praising us for recognizing unconventional talent. The other half are saying we've destroyed professional credibility. There's a petition circulating, Maintain Engineering Standards, with about 3,000 signatures. Who started it? Can't tell. Anonymous account. But the language sounds familiar. He pulled up the petition. They're demanding we reverse Marcus's promotion and issue a public apology for devaluing professional credentials. Catherine read it. The words were careful coded, but the message was clear. People like Marcus didn't belong. Derek, she asked. I don't know. But he didn't show up this morning. Called in sick. Convenient timing. Kate, this is getting bigger than us. The professional engineering societies are getting involved. There's talk of ethics investigations, of reviewing our contracts to ensure we're maintaining technical standards. She sat down heavily. We saved 400 jobs. We secured a $100 million contract. We solved a problem that stumped 18 credentialed engineers. And the response is ethics investigations. The response is fear. People who've spent hundreds of thousands on degrees watching someone without one do their job. It threatens their sense of value. Their sense of superiority, you mean? That too. Her phone rang. Marcus. I'm outside the building. Security won't let me through. Says I'm a security risk until my clearance update processes. Catherine's vision went red. Stay there. I'm coming down. She found him standing in the parking lot holding his badge, looking like he wanted to disappear. The protesters had noticed him, were pointing, shouting. That's him, the janitor. Go back to mopping floors. You don't belong here. Catherine walked straight through them, took Marcus's arm, led him toward the building. Ms. Reynolds, you can't. The security guard started. I can, and I am. This man is a senior technical consultant with full building access. If his badge isn't working, that's a system error, not a security issue. Fix it. Now. Ma'am, I have orders. From who? The guard hesitated. Mr. Walsh. Gregory, of course. Mr. Walsh is a board member, not operational management. I'm the CEO. I'm overriding those orders. let Mr. Williams through or start looking for new employment." The guard stepped aside. Catherine walked Marcus through the lobby, past the reporters shouting questions, past employees staring past everything. In the elevator, Marcus finally spoke. "Maybe I should resign. This is destroying you. Don't you dare. We're not giving them that satisfaction. Kate, I'm not worth this. I'm not worth you losing your company." She turned to face him. "You are worth exactly this. Because if we back down now, we're saying they were right. That credentials matter more than competence. That people like you should stay invisible. Is that the message you want Elena to learn? No. Then we fight. Together." The elevator doors opened. Victor was waiting, looking panicked. "Board meeting moved up. Starts in 10 minutes. Gregory's pushing for an immediate vote on your leadership." Catherine felt something settle in her chest. Calm. Clear. "Good. Let's finish this." The boardroom felt like a courtroom. 8 members sat around the table, 5 men, 3 women, all of them watching her with varying degrees of concern and hostility. Gregory Walsh sat at the far end, arms crossed, looking like a man who'd already won. Catherine took her seat. Marcus started to leave. "Stay," she said. "Ma'am, this is board business. Stay, they need to see you." He sat in a chair against the wall, silent, present. Gregory opened without preamble. "Catherine, this emergency session is to address your recent decisions regarding personnel and company representation, specifically the promotion of Marcus Williams and your statements to the Department of Defense and the press. The board feels you've acted recklessly and without proper consultation." The board feels, or you feel, Gregory. I'm speaking for several members who share concerns about the precedent you're setting and the damage to our professional reputation. What damage? We secured the DoD contract. We're being approached by DARPA for additional work. Our stock is up 12% since Friday. What exactly is damaged? Our credibility, our standards, the perception that Apex Defense Systems maintains rigorous technical requirements. We maintain results. We deliver systems that work. That's the only standard that matters. You promoted someone from janitorial services to senior technical consultant. You can't honestly believe that's appropriate. Catherine leaned forward. I promoted someone with 22 years of relevant experience who solved a critical problem. His previous job title is irrelevant. His lack of formal engineering education isn't irrelevant. Neither is his criminal record. Marcus flinched. Catherine saw it, felt it like a physical blow. His arrest record, she said, voice ice, consists of a single incident where charges were dropped. He pushed a security guard while trying to get his daughter medical care that the VA had denied. If you're suggesting that disqualifies him, then I question your judgment more than his character. I'm suggesting that we have hiring standards for a reason. That we can't simply ignore credentials because someone has a sob story. It's not a sob story. It's a man who served his country for 2 decades, got medically retired, and then got locked out of the career he'd trained for because our hiring systems are broken. If you can't see the injustice in that, you're exactly the problem I'm trying to fix. A board member named Linda Chen spoke up. Kate, no one is questioning Marcus's service or his recent contribution, but Gregory raises valid concerns about process. You made significant decisions without board consultation. The scholarship fund alone. The scholarship fund is my personal money. I funded it myself. The board has no say. But you announced it as a company initiative. I announced it as an Apex-affiliated program, which it is. Employees' children can apply. That benefits the company by improving recruitment and retention. It costs the board nothing. It sets expectations, Gregory interrupted. Now every employee will expect their kids to get free college. Only if their kids are qualified. Only if they're pursuing STEM degrees that align with our mission. I'm not running a charity. I'm investing in future talent. She looked around the table. And I'm doing what none of you have done, acknowledging that we've built systems that exclude talented people for arbitrary reasons, that waste human potential because we're more comfortable with pedigree than performance. This isn't about comfort, Gregory said. It's about maintaining standards that ensure quality and safety. Defense systems aren't the place to experiment with diversity initiatives. The word hung in the air like poison. Marcus stood up. Mr. Walsh, may I speak? This is a closed board meeting. Let him speak, Catherine said. Marcus stepped forward. His hands were steady. His voice was clear. Mr. Walsh, you called this a diversity initiative. It's not. I'm not here because Ms. Reynolds wanted to check a box or make a statement. I'm here because I know atmospheric interference modeling better than anyone else in this company. I know it because I've seen these systems fail in combat, because I've watched radar screens go blank when missiles were incoming, because I've had to explain to commanding officers why our defenses didn't work when sailors' lives were on the line. He moved closer to the table. You talk about standards. I respect that. Standards matter. But standards should measure competence, not credentials. You want to know if I'm qualified? Ask me about phase-dependent scattering. Ask me about droplet nucleation patterns in different atmospheric conditions. Ask me about error correction algorithms for signal processing. I can answer. In detail. Because I lived with this technology for 22 years. That's not the same as formal engineering training, Gregory said. You're right. It's better. Because formal training teaches you theory. Field experience teaches you reality. And reality is where systems either work or people die. Marcus's voice hardened. I've been on the reality side of that equation. Have you? Gregory's face flushed. I didn't think so. Marcus turned to address the full board. I understand that my presence makes some people uncomfortable. I understand that I don't fit the expected profile. But I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking to be evaluated on what I know and what I can do, not on where I learned it or what degrees I have. If that's too radical for this company, then maybe Ms. Reynolds is right about the systems being broken. He stepped back, sat down. The boardroom was silent. Finally, Linda Chen spoke. Gregory, I think we need to separate issues here. Kate's handling of the promotion might have been unconventional, but the results speak for themselves. We got the contract. We're being courted by DARPA. Stock is up. From a business perspective, this was successful. Successful this time, Gregory said. What about next time? What about when we need actual engineers and everyone expects us to just promote whoever has a good story? That's a slippery slope argument. Another board member, James Rodriguez, interjected. Kate isn't proposing we eliminate degree requirements across the board. She's proposing we evaluate candidates holistically, that we consider experience alongside education. That seems reasonable. It's a deviation from industry norms. Maybe industry norms need to change. James looked at Marcus. Mr. Williams, you mentioned 22 years of service. Did you ever consider going to college after your discharge? Yes, sir. I applied to several programs using my GI Bill. Most wouldn't accept my military training as transfer credits. Said I'd need to start as a freshman. I was 41 years old with a daughter in high school. Starting a 4-year degree wasn't practical. So the system failed you. The system is designed for 18-year-olds with no responsibilities and families who can support them. It's not designed for people like me. That's not a complaint. That's just reality. James nodded slowly. I think that's what Kate is trying to address. Not lowering standards, but recognizing that our current standards exclude qualified people for non-relevant reasons. Mr. Williams clearly has the knowledge. He clearly has the experience. The only thing he lacks is a piece of paper saying he sat in classrooms for 4 years. Is that piece of paper worth more than 2 decades of practical application? It validates a baseline of knowledge, Gregory insisted. So does successfully solving a $100 million problem. James looked at Catherine. Kate, I move that we table this discussion and revisit it in 90 days. Let's see how Marcus performs over the next quarter. If he continues to contribute at a high level, I think that validates your decision. If problems emerge, we'll address them then. Fair. Catherine wanted to argue, wanted to demand immediate affirmation. But she recognized an olive branch when she saw one. Fair. All in favor. 6 hands went up. Gregory stayed down along with one other member. Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned. Gregory stood up immediately, walked out without a word. Catherine watched him go, knowing this wasn't over. He'd regroup, find new angles of attack, make her pay for embarrassing him. Let him try. After the board dispersed, Linda Chen approached Catherine. That was risky. Everything worth doing is. Gregory's going to make your life difficult. Gregory was born making people's lives difficult. Linda smiled slightly. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. My son has autism, brilliant mind, can't navigate traditional academic structures. He's been rejected from programs that would have been perfect for him because he doesn't test well. So when I see you fighting for Marcus for people the system overlooks, I see you fighting for my son too. She walked away before Catherine could respond. Marcus stood by the window looking down at the parking lot where protesters still gathered. They're not going to stop, he said quietly. No, they're not. I can still resign. Make this easier for you. Marcus, look at me. He turned. In 3 days, you've changed this company more than I've changed it in 15 years. You've exposed our weaknesses, forced us to confront our biases, made us better. That's not something to run from. That's something to build on. Even if it costs you your job. I've had this job for 15 years. It's made me wealthy. It's made me successful. But it hasn't made me proud. Not like this. Not like standing up for something that actually matters. She moved to stand beside him. Elena is watching. Every young person with unconventional backgrounds is watching. Every veteran trying to transition to civilian work is watching. We can't let them down. That's a lot of weight. Yes, but we're not carrying it alone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Chen. Lab 3. You need to see this. They found the engineering team gathered around a computer. On the screen was a video someone had recorded Marcus's speech to the board and posted it online. It was already viral. 3 million views, tens of thousands of comments. Sarah scrolled through them. Look at this. I'm a veteran with electrical engineering experience. Been rejected from 47 jobs because I don't have a bachelor's degree. This gives me hope. And this one. My dad worked as a technician for 30 years. Knew more than the engineers, but never got promoted. Died thinking his knowledge didn't matter. Thank you for proving it does. More comments flooded in as they watched. Stories of people locked out of careers they were qualified for. People whose knowledge came from experience, not classrooms. People who'd been invisible until Marcus made them seen. Victor appeared in the doorway. Kate, we're getting calls. Veterans organizations, community colleges, trade schools. They all want to talk about hiring partnerships, about building pipelines for people with non-traditional backgrounds. How many calls? 43 in the last 2 hours. Catherine looked at Marcus, saw him reading the comments, saw tears on his face. It's not just me, he said, voice breaking. There are thousands of us, tens of thousands, all of us told we're not good enough because we don't have the right paper. Then we change that, Catherine said. We build something better, something that actually works for people like you. How? I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. Her phone rang. Elena. Ms. Reynolds, are you watching the news? Which channel? All of them. They're talking about my dad, about what happened at the board meeting. Someone leaked the video. Elena's voice was tight with emotion. He told them off. He stood up for himself. I've never seen him do that before. He was remarkable. Ms. Reynolds, I need to tell you something. What is it? I've been accepted to MIT early admission. Full scholarship through your fund. They called this morning. They said," she broke down crying. "They said my application essay about my dad was the most powerful thing they'd read. They said he's changing the conversation about what engineering looks like, about who gets to be an engineer." Catherine closed her eyes, felt something break open in her chest. "Elena, congratulations. Your mother would be so proud." "She would be proud of both of you. Thank you for giving him back to me. The real him, not the man who was hiding." After hanging up, Catherine found Marcus still at the computer, still reading comments. Victor stood beside him, pointing out specific messages. Sarah approached Catherine. "This is bigger than the DoD contract, isn't it?" "Yes." "What are we going to do about it?" Catherine thought about all the calls coming in, about the people watching, hoping, needing to believe that change was possible, about Gregory Walsh and everyone like him who wanted things to stay exactly as they were, about Elena heading to MIT carrying her father's courage with her. "We're going to build something new," Catherine said finally. "A training program, a certification pathway, something that validates practical knowledge alongside traditional education. We're going to prove that people like Marcus aren't exceptions. They're untapped potential. And we're going to help other companies recognize that potential before it's wasted." "That's ambitious." "Good. I'm tired of small ambitions." Victor overheard. "You'll need allies, other companies willing to take the risk." "Then we'll find them. Or build them. Whatever it takes." Marcus turned away from the computer. His eyes were red but clear. "You really want to do this? Build something systemic. I want to make sure Elena's children never have to fight the battles you fought. That seems worth doing. It'll be hard. People like Gregory will fight you every step. Let them fight. I've got 22 years of military intelligence experience. I know how to win wars." She smiled. "And now I've got a former Navy technician who knows how to make impossible systems work. I like our odds." Outside, the sun was setting. The protesters had left. The press had dispersed. The building settled into evening quiet. Catherine stood at her office window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there were thousands of people like Marcus, waiting, hoping, wondering if their knowledge mattered. Tomorrow she'd start making calls, building coalitions, turning this moment into a movement. But tonight, she let herself feel what she'd accomplished. Not saving the company, though she'd done that. Not securing the contract, though that mattered. She'd changed one life, given one man his dignity back, shown one young woman that brilliance counted more than pedigree. That was enough. That was everything. Her phone buzzed one last time. "Marcus. Elena just called me. She got into MIT. "I know. She called me too. Kate. I don't know how to thank you." "You already did. You showed up. You stood up. You refused to stay invisible. That's all the thanks I need." Long pause. Then, "What happens now?" Catherine smiled at her own reflection in the darkening window. Now we change everything." 6 weeks later, Catherine stood in a hotel conference room that smelled like coffee and ambition, watching 200 people file in for the inaugural Veterans Technical Talent Summit. She'd rented the space with her own money, sent invitations to every defense contractor, tech company, and veterans organization she could find. Expected maybe 50 attendees. 200 showed up. More were standing in the back. Marcus sat in the front row beside Elena, who'd driven home from MIT for the weekend. His hands were folded tightly in his lap. He'd been nervous all morning. "You don't have to do this," Catherine had told him earlier. "I can present alone." No. They need to hear from someone who lived it. Not just someone who feels bad about it. Now, looking at the crowded room, Catherine understood what they'd tapped into. This wasn't just about Marcus anymore. It was about every veteran who'd returned home to find their skills didn't translate. Every technician told they needed a degree to do work they'd done for years. Every brilliant mind locked out because they'd learned differently. She stepped to the podium. The room quieted. "Thank you for coming. I'm Catherine Reynolds, CEO of Apex Defense Systems. 6 weeks ago, we almost lost a $100 million contract because our atmospheric modeling system didn't work. 18 credentialed engineers spent 3 days trying to fix it. They failed. She paused, let that sink in. Then our night janitor, a man we'd employed for 3 years without recognizing his qualifications, solved the problem in 4 minutes. Marcus Williams is a former Navy electronics warfare technician with 22 years of experience. He has no engineering degree. He has more practical knowledge about the systems we build than anyone in our company, and we'd made him invisible. Heads nodded throughout the room. People leaned forward. Today we're here to acknowledge a systemic failure, not just at Apex, but across our entire industry. We've built hiring systems that optimize for credentials over competence, that filter out qualified candidates because they learned in the field instead of in classrooms, that waste human potential because we're more comfortable with pedigree than performance. And we're here to change that. She gestured to Marcus. I'd like to introduce the man who started this conversation, Marcus Williams. He stood, walked to the podium. Catherine stepped aside but stayed close. Marcus looked out at the crowd. 200 faces, some skeptical, some hopeful, all waiting. I'm not used to being visible, he said. His voice was steady but soft. For 3 years I cleaned this industry's buildings, emptied trash cans, mopped floors, walked past engineers working on systems I understood better than they did. And I never said anything because janitors don't talk to engineers. That's not how the world works. A woman in the third row spoke up. Why didn't you apply for engineering positions? I did, 47 times. I was told I lacked current experience, that I didn't have the right degrees, that gaps in my resume were concerning. Eventually, I needed to feed my daughter more than I needed to prove myself, so I took what was available. What changed? A man asked from the back. I got lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. Someone saw me doing what I knew how to do and chose to recognize it instead of ignore it. He looked at Catherine. But luck shouldn't be the requirement. Competence should be. Another voice, older gravelly. I'm a retired Army sergeant. 26 years. Trained hundreds of soldiers on communication systems. Can't get hired as a telecom technician because I don't have a bachelor's degree. You telling me there's a solution? I'm telling you there should be. That's why we're here. For the next hour they heard stories. A former Marine who'd maintained Apache helicopters now worked at an auto parts store because his military certifications weren't recognized. A Navy IT specialist with a decade of cybersecurity experience was rejected from civilian positions requiring a computer science degree. An Air Force meteorologist couldn't get hired by weather services because her training wasn't from an accredited university. Every story hit like a hammer. Every person represented wasted potential institutional failure, a system that cared more about process than results. Catherine took the podium again. Here's what Apex is doing. We're creating an alternative certification pathway. Veterans with technical military experience can complete a 90-day assessment program. If they demonstrate competence, we'll hire them. No degree required. We're also launching partnerships with community colleges to develop accelerated programs that give credit for military training. How do you ensure quality? Someone asked. How do you know they're actually qualified? Marcus answered. The same way the military knows. Practical assessments, real-world problem solving, demonstrated competence under pressure. We don't test if you can pass exams. We test if you can do the job. What about professional engineering licenses, legal requirements? Those are real constraints, Catherine acknowledged. We can't put someone in a position that legally requires a PE license without them having one. But most positions don't require that. Most positions require knowledge, experience, and problem-solving ability. Those we can assess. A woman stood up. Mid-50s gray hair, tired eyes. I'm Rebecca Hart. I run HR for Lockheed Martin's Missile Defense Division. I'm interested in what you're proposing, but I'm also terrified. If we lower our standards, we're not lowering standards. Catherine interrupted. We're expanding how we measure them. That's different. Is it? Because I've spent 30 years building hiring systems that ensure quality and safety. What you're suggesting sounds like throwing those systems out. I'm suggesting your systems are excluding qualified people. That's not the same as maintaining quality. That's maintaining comfort. Rebecca's face flushed. That's not fair. Isn't it Marcus Williams has more relevant experience than half your engineering staff? But your systems would have filtered him out. Is that quality assurance or quality prevention? Silence. Rebecca sat down slowly. Marcus stepped forward again. Ms. Hart, I understand your concern. I do. You're responsible for safety, for performance, for ensuring that systems work. That's critical. But consider this. I've seen your systems fail in combat. I've watched your tracking algorithms lose targets. I've debugged your code while under fire, and I couldn't get hired to fix those problems because I lacked a piece of paper saying I'd spent 4 years in classrooms learning theory I already knew. He paused. Let that land. I'm not asking you to abandon standards. I'm asking you to evaluate whether your standards actually measure what matters. Do they predict performance? Do they identify the best candidates? Or do they just filter for people who look like you? Expect them to look. Rebecca stared at him, finally nodded. Fair point. What would you propose as an alternative? Practical assessments. Give candidates real problems. See how they solve them. Check their work. That's what the military does. That's what actually predicts performance. That's expensive, time-consuming. So is hiring the wrong people because they had the right resume. So is missing talent because your filters are too narrow. What's more expensive, investing time up front or dealing with failures downstream? A man in a suit stood. I'm James Wilson, VP at Raytheon. I'm skeptical of this entire premise. We have degree requirements because they provide baseline assurance of knowledge. Without that, how do we ensure consistency? Catherine answered. How did you ensure consistency when you hired me? I have degrees, Air Force Academy Masters in Systems Engineering, so I passed your filters. But what if I'd been incompetent? What if I'd just been good at taking tests? Your system would have hired me anyway because I had the right credentials. But you weren't incompetent. No, but not because of my degrees. Because of my experience, my work ethic, my ability to solve problems under pressure. Things you couldn't assess from my transcript. She leaned forward. That's my point. Credentials correlate with competence, but they don't guarantee it. And the absence of credentials doesn't indicate incompetence. We need to look deeper. James sat down unconvinced but thoughtful. Elena raised her hand. Catherine nodded to her. I'm Elena Williams, Marcus's daughter. I just started at MIT. Her voice was clear, young, fierce. I've spent my whole life watching my father hide his intelligence because people couldn't see past his job title. Watching him help me with calculus homework after cleaning toilets for 8 hours. Watching him build things, fix things, understand things that people with degrees couldn't grasp. And I've watched it break him. Not the work, the invisibility. The knowledge that he knew things that mattered, but nobody cared. She stood up, fully facing the room. I'm at MIT because Ms. Reynolds created a scholarship, because she saw my father when nobody else would. But there are thousands of kids like me whose parents have knowledge the world needs and won't recognize, whose families are struggling because expertise doesn't count if it comes from the wrong place. You all talk about maintaining standards. I'm asking, who are your standards for? Are they for ensuring quality or for ensuring that certain types of people stay in certain types of jobs? The room was dead silent. Because if it's the second thing, you should just say so. Stop pretending it's about competence when it's really about gatekeeping. She sat down. Marcus's eyes were wet. Catherine felt her throat tighten. An older veteran stood up. Silver hair, ramrod straight posture. Colonel David Martinez, retired. 30 years Army Corps of Engineers. I've watched this problem for decades. Seen qualified soldiers leave service and end up underemployed because their training doesn't fit civilian frameworks. It's a national security issue. We're wasting talent we invested years developing. If this initiative can fix even part of that, you have my support. What do you need? Partners, Catherine said. Companies willing to pilot alternative hiring programs. Veterans organizations willing to help identify qualified candidates. Educational institutions willing to develop assessment tools that measure competence instead of credentials. And courage. This is going to be controversial. People will push back hard. Let them push, Martinez said. I'm in. Others started standing. A VP from Boeing, an HR director from Northrop Grumman, a community college president, a veterans employment advocate. Not everyone, maybe a third of the room, but enough to start. After the formal session ended, people crowded around Marcus and Catherine. Business cards exchanged, partnerships proposed, stories shared. A woman pulled Marcus aside and quietly said her brother had been in the Navy, couldn't find work, killed himself 2 years ago. She was crying when she thanked him for speaking up. Rebecca Hart approached Catherine. I was defensive earlier. I apologize. You were protecting systems you built. I understand that. No, you were right. I've been protecting comfort, not quality. My nephew is a Marine. Explosive ordnance disposal. He can disarm bombs but can't get hired as an electrician because he lacks civilian certifications. That's insane. She pulled out her card. Call me Monday. Let's talk about what Lockheed can do. Catherine took the card. Felt something shift. This was really happening. As the crowd thinned, Catherine found Marcus standing by the window, looking down at the street. You okay? She asked. Elena's speech. Did you know she was going to say that? No? She's angry. At the whole system. At what it did to me. To us. She should be angry. It's a broken system. But she's also... His voice caught. She's also proud of me. For the first time in years, she's proud. Not sympathetic. Not worried. Proud. She always was proud. You just couldn't see it. Maybe, but now I can. He turned to face her. Kate, I need to tell you something. What? Derek came to see me yesterday. We talked for 2 hours. Catherine tensed. What did he say? He apologized. Said he'd been scared. That watching me solve problems he couldn't made him feel worthless. Made him question everything he'd spent his career building. He said it wasn't about me specifically. It was about his own insecurity. That's surprisingly honest. It gets better. He wants to help. He's offering to develop the technical assessment tools for the certification program. Says if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. Make it rigorous enough that nobody can claim we're lowering standards. Catherine absorbed this. Can you work with him? I think so. He's brilliant. Just scared. I understand scared. Me too. They stood together watching evening fall over the city. Behind them, people were still networking, still planning, still believing that change was possible. Catherine's phone buzzed. Patricia Chen. Gregory Walsh just resigned from the board. He what? Submitted his resignation an hour ago, effective immediately. Said the company's direction no longer aligns with his vision. Catherine should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt tired. Any fallout? Some. 2 other board members are considering following him. But James Rodriguez is rallying support. Says what you're doing is the most important thing Apex has ever attempted. He's pushing to expand the initiative, not contract it. What do you think? I think you've started something that can't be stopped, for better or worse. Which is it, better or worse? Long pause. Better. Definitely better. But it's going to be hard. After hanging up, Catherine turned to Marcus. Gregory's out. Will that make things easier? No. He'll probably start working against us from outside. But at least he won't be in board meetings sabotaging every decision. Kate, can I ask you something? Always. Why are you really doing this? The certification program, the partnerships, all of it. You've already proven your point. Already saved the company. You could stop now. Declare victory and move on. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Then, my father died 10 years ago. Heart attack. 63 years old. Spent his whole life fixing cars. Never made more than $40,000 a year. But he was brilliant. Could diagnose engine problems by sound. Could rebuild transmissions blindfolded. Could make anything work. She paused, collecting herself. He wanted to open his own shop. Had plans, drawings, business projections. But banks wouldn't loan him money. Said he lacked education. Lacked collateral. Lacked the profile of a successful entrepreneur. So he worked for other people his whole life. Died with those plans still in a drawer. Marcus waited. At his funeral, 20 mechanics showed up. Men he'd trained. Men whose careers he'd launched. And every single one of them told me the same thing. Your father was the smartest man I ever knew. He taught me everything. And I thought, what a waste. What a criminal waste of human potential. That the world let that brilliance die in a garage because he didn't have the right papers. She looked at Marcus. I don't want Elena to stand at your funeral someday and think that. I don't want her to bury your brilliance because the world couldn't see it. So I'm doing this for her, for you, and for my father who deserved better than he got. Marcus's voice was thick. He'd be proud of you. I hope so. Because I'm doing what he taught me, fixing things that are broken. Just on a bigger scale than carburetors. They stood in comfortable silence as the room emptied. Finally, Marcus spoke again. DARPA called me yesterday. They want to hire me as a consultant on their atmospheric modeling research. 6-month contract. Good money. That's wonderful. It's terrifying. I keep waiting for someone to realize I'm a fraud, that I got lucky once and can't possibly do it again. That's imposter syndrome. Every accomplished person has it. Do you? Every single day, I walk into board meetings wondering when someone will realize I'm just a mechanic's daughter who learned to fake it. She smiled. The secret is that everyone's faking it. We're all making it up as we go. The difference is, some of us have credentials that give us permission to fake it with confidence. That's oddly comforting. Isn't it? Elena appeared carrying her coat. Dad, we should go. It's getting late. Marcus hugged his daughter, kissed her forehead. I'm so proud of your speech today. I'm proud of you every day. I just finally got to say it publicly. They left together, father and daughter, walking out of a hotel conference room where 200 people had gathered to witness the beginning of something new. Catherine stayed behind, helping hotel staff stack chairs, her habit from years of making herself useful. One of the hotel workers, an older black woman, approached her. Excuse me, are you Ms. Reynolds? I am. I watched your presentation. I have a son. He was Army, served in Iraq, smart as anything. Can't get hired doing what he's trained for. Works at Target now stocking shelves. Her eyes filled. You're giving people like him hope. Thank you. Catherine felt tears coming. What's his name? James Peterson. Tell him to send his resume to my office. Attention to me personally. I can't promise anything, but we'll look. The woman grabbed her hand. God bless you. Truly. Catherine drove home in darkness, thinking about James Peterson. About all the James Petersons. About Marcus and Elena and her father and every person whose brilliance went unseen because it came wrapped in the wrong package. Her phone rang. Victor. Kate, you need to see this. Check the Apex website, our job applications page. She pulled over, opened her phone's browser. The company careers page had crashed. Too much traffic. How many applications? Over 3,000 in the last 6 hours. Veterans, former technicians, people with experience but no degrees. They're all applying for the certification program. 3,000. And climbing. This is going to be a logistical nightmare. We don't have infrastructure to evaluate that many candidates. Then we'll build infrastructure. Call Derek. Tell him we need those assessment tools faster than planned. Call Rebecca Hart at Lockheed. Tell her we need to share the load. And Victor. Yeah. Thank you for believing in this, for making it possible. Thank you for being brave enough to start it. I've been in this industry 30 years. I've watched qualified people get rejected for stupid reasons. It wore on me, made me cynical. You gave me something to believe in again. After hanging up, Catherine sat in her car watching headlights stream past. 3,000 applications. 3,000 people who'd been invisible, hoping someone would finally see them. The weight of that responsibility was crushing, but also clarifying. She started the car, drove home, poured a glass of wine she was too tired to drink. Sat in her silent house, thinking about what came next. Building the assessment infrastructure. Developing the certification curriculum. Fighting off critics who'd call this degradation of standards. Managing board members who'd worry about liability. Proving that competence could be measured without credentials. It was impossible. Overwhelming. Terrifying. She'd do it anyway. Because somewhere out there a mechanic's daughter was watching. A janitor's daughter was watching. 3,000 veterans were watching. Thousands more who hadn't applied yet, but were waiting, wondering if change was real. Catherine thought about her father. Wished he could see this. Wished he could know that his daughter had taken the lesson he'd taught her, fix what's broken, and applied it to systems instead of engines. She pulled out her phone, texted Marcus. Elena's speech today. She's going to change the world. His response came immediately. She learned from the best. Thank you for showing her it's possible. Catherine set down the phone, closed her eyes, and for the first time in 15 years, she didn't dream about quarterly reports or board meetings or stock prices. She dreamed about her father's garage, about young Marcus in a Navy uniform studying radar screens, about Elena in an MIT lab building robots, about 3,000 people whose applications sat waiting, hoping for a chance to prove what they knew. She dreamed about a world where brilliance didn't need permission to shine. And when she woke up 6 hours later, she got back to work building it. Because that's what mechanics' daughters did. They fixed things. Even when the things that needed fixing were bigger than carburetors. Even when the work was impossible. Especially then. 3 months after the summit, the first cohort of 23 veterans graduated from the Apex Alternative Certification Program. 18 of them received job offers. The other 5 were hired by partner companies before Apex could make their offers. 6 months later, Elena came home for Christmas break. She'd made Dean's List, started her own robotics club for first-generation college students, applied for a summer internship at Apex. 1 year later, the certification program had expanded to 17 companies. Over 300 veterans had been placed in technical positions. The program's success rate exceeded traditional hiring by 12%. Derek published a paper on competency-based assessment that became required reading in HR programs. Rebecca Hart left Lockheed to start a nonprofit, connecting veterans with technical careers. Gregory Walsh started a competing company that maintained traditional standards. It went bankrupt within 18 months. And Marcus Williams, former janitor, current senior technical consultant, future legend, stood in the Apex lobby, looking at the framed whiteboard that started it all. Catherine found him there. Still can't believe that's real, he said. Which part? The whiteboard or everything that came after? Both. All of it. That night I was just trying to help, didn't think anyone would notice. Someone always notices, we just don't always choose to see. They stood together looking at equations that had changed their lives, changed hundreds of lives, would change thousands more. Kate, yes. Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. She turned to face him. Marcus, you fought for yourself every day for 3 years. You showed up, you did the work, you kept your knowledge alive even when nobody valued it. I didn't give you anything. I just stopped taking it away. That's more than most people do. Then we need to raise our standards. He smiled. Speaking of which, Elena wants to talk to you. Something about her senior thesis project. What about alternative pathways for engineering education? She's designing a curriculum that integrates practical experience with theoretical knowledge. Says she wants to make sure future students don't have to choose between learning and living. She's going to be remarkable. She already is. She just needed permission to show it. Catherine thought about that word. Permission. How much brilliance was locked behind gates of permission? How many people were waiting for someone to say, yes, you belong here. Your knowledge matters. Your experience counts. She'd spent her career seeking permission, waiting for authority figures to validate her worth, to tell her she'd earned her place. Marcus had taught her something different. That sometimes you had to give yourself permission. Had to say, I know what I know, and that's enough. Had to stop waiting for the world to recognize you and start insisting that it should. That was the real gift. Not the job. Not the recognition. The permission to stop apologizing for being brilliant in unexpected ways. Tell Elena I'd love to talk about her thesis. And Marcus. Yes. You changed my life too. You reminded me why I started this company, what it was supposed to be for. You gave me permission to care about more than profits. I didn't do anything. You existed, visibly, unapologetically. Despite everything the world did to make you invisible. That's revolutionary. He shook his head, but he was smiling. They walked back to the lab together. Back to work. Back to building systems that actually served the people who used them. Back to proving every day that competence mattered more than credentials, that experience counted, that brilliance came in countless forms if you were willing to look. And somewhere in America, a veteran was updating a resume. A technician was applying for a job. A brilliant mind was refusing to stay invisible. Because Marcus Williams had written on a whiteboard, and Catherine Reynolds had chosen to see. And together they'd changed the conversation about who got to matter. That was enough. That was everything. That was just the beginning.